I suppose, although frankly, those are just words, labels that people like to attach to people. But my corporate background, I left university and went straight into corporate life. First company was construction. Qualified as an accountant, and learned about how businesses succeed and how they fail. And I suppose at that time, interestingly enough, my first job was working for a woman. So at that point, I had two women in my life. My mother, who literally did wear the trousers in the house, where she had, as she called it, 5 boys. One of the boys was my father. So she had 4 boys and a husband. My first job was working for a woman, and so I've understood diversification and inclusion from day one. One thing I was lucky with, that she taught me everything. She helped me understand it. She helped me make mistakes, because, as we all know, sometimes making mistakes is the best way of learning. But fortunately, being my boss, she would always look over the numbers before we put the report together. So, and that taught me about feedback, how to work as a team, how to collaborate. No question that she was my boss and I was a subordinate. We were just equals doing a project. So I learned all about project management. There's no project management title in my history, but I've done project management, I've done supply chain management, and with nearly 30 years in international oil and gas, there isn't much about joint ventures, collaboration that I don't know. And for those that think oil and gas is just big business, oil and gas only survives because of collaboration, because of joint ventures. It's a very expensive arena to make a profit. So you work in a joint venture arena, which means you may not have the answer, but someone in your team does. It's
okay. So we have Mr. Taib.
Industry that, interestingly enough, is on its own. I actually thought when I worked in the oil and gas industry that every industry was the same when I came out of it. I've been there so long. And interestingly enough, none of them follow it. In education, you don't follow it. You don't follow it, not in a joint venture way. What's yours is yours. We talk about sharing, we don't really share it. We teach our kids, we don't really share it. We don't talk about collaboration. And the interesting thing is, and there's one for you, okay? Why don't we sit an exam as a team? Why are all the exams we do individual? I don't want an answer, by the way, but the one thing that young people get to know very early, if they're lucky enough to get a job, the first thing they do is they work as a team. But why don't we sit an exam as a team? We do coursework as a team. We do chemistry and physics experiments as a team. But the homework we do individually. Anyway, it's just one for you. Taib, thank you very much for your comments. I mean, I would love to focus my attention, like anything else. Entrepreneurs are very laser focused. Part of Anas reaching out to me in his current capacity was to have that laser focus. Because like anything else, you only change something locally if you think globally. So we can change the attitude of a generation in a specific area. If that's your area, your arena, your scope of work, then that's great. Because you will reap the benefits first. You will see a change in your teacher's teaching. You will see a change in your pupil or your students' attitude to what's happening. And equally, that will ripple back to your parents. Because fundamentally, that's the team of this young person that you're teaching.
And
they believe you all, by the way. A 16-year-old will believe their parents. Yes, certainly. Taib, go ahead.
Why Pakistan? Why you chose Pakistan? How did you reach it?
Interesting question. My simple answer is coincidence is God's way of staying anonymous. I just happened to, when I had a proper job, as I call it, when I was employed by an oil and gas company, I would go backwards and forwards from Pakistan 3 times a year, typically. Eventually, after about 9 or 10 years, I was given the responsibility of recruiting the best for our new exploration areas or our new production areas. And I would always go back to people in Pakistan. We had a team of about 30, they were in Karachi. The field was called the Kadamwari field. You can look it up. It was right in the north of the country. It was a gas field. And I just got to know the capability of young Pakistanis. Again, mostly in the finance arena because I had the finance responsibility. But I would literally pick and recommend we were a small company, but we punched well above our weight. We had a big project in Venezuela and we transferred 4 people in the finance office in Karachi into Venezuela. So I have an affinity with Pakistan as a country. For those old enough to remember, in the 1990s, it was a tough arena. There were bombs, shootings, tourists and foreigners were welcome from the economy point of view, but for some reason, they were taken out on a regular basis. In fact, I lost 4 of my good friends one evening. They were gunned down in a taxi in Karachi in 1997. So it was a tough arena, but I came through it. And 15 years later, I was invited to come and speak in Pakistan. There was a conference called LEAD 2017, which is a big conference in Tennessee. And Ali Jafri had got the country license to host the conference. And he flew me into Karachi. I gave a keynote speech there. And somebody said, please come back and teach us about leadership. So 3 weeks later, I came back and I did a round robin tour talking about leadership, behavioral waste, Anas, as you probably recall.
Okay, there is a question in the chat box. Just want a very brief answer to it. Reducing racism in the country. How can we reduce the racism in the country? That's from Sarish. And then, we'll go for the ending of the session.
All I can say is whatever's been done isn't working. And I'm not just talking about Pakistan, it's everywhere. We're a cosmopolitan society in the UK, and yet racism is rife. So whatever we're doing, anyone else can learn the lesson is don't do it that way because it's not working. The simple fact is you need to do it from grassroots. You can't dictate for this. You can't legislate for this because all you'll do is push it underground. So how we do it? Well, we do it in the schools. And, racism can even be bullying in many respects. And I'm sure every school in Pakistan, as every school in the world, has got an anti-bullying procedure, manual. But that doesn't eradicate bullying. People eradicate bullying, and people will eradicate racism. I mean, just for everyone here, I've never gone to Pakistan and not been welcomed. As I get off the plane, I've been welcomed. As I get back on the plane, at the end of it, I've had a thoroughly enjoyable time. People are very welcoming. Part of that fact is I'm white. I do come from the Western arena, but it shouldn't be that way. I just, like helping people get on. And that's why we're here today. Rashid wants to ask a question, but his English isn't good. So type it in Urdu. I'm sure Anas or someone here can be my interpreter. It wouldn't be the first time, Rashid, that I've had someone interpret for me. And I'm sure your English is far better than my Urdu.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum salam.
Did you hearing? So my question is basically this one. There's all of the participants are here. They belong to the, you can say the people who are not religious. Religious in sense of not that all of Muslims, in that sense. I am saying this, there is a system in Pakistan. Lot of Mudaris are here. They have their own education system. And this education system is parallel to them. They have a lot of thoughts they are giving to the students, which are not given by this system, which they are giving. Okay, these students have lot of, you can say, specific thoughts, specific, you can say, scenario about the life, and they are not involving with the system of education system of Pakistan. How can you give the policy that you can have sit with that ulmas or that mudaris boards, that you can collaborate the education system? Both system can run on the same page. Is it possible? This is my question.
It's a great question, and the simple answer is yes. I mean, anything's possible, but it takes two like-minded people from opposing sides things saying in the book.